Okay, one other thing I wanted to share. I often get the question, well, great, I see the economic model in MREA. My business is a little bit different. Does the economic model do anything else or help me with anything else? I want to share just one piece of actually the Model Your Way to a Million course that I take students and participants through. And it's called, in what I call, some economic worksheets. And what I've done here is really just played with some of the numbers to see, well, how drastically does a change in one of the numbers affect my business? And should I look at those changes? Should I strategize around those changes? So for instance, we've gone through what the typical economic model of an MREA looks like. And same thing with the conversion ratios, right? So for instance, the typical listing agent is going out and listing 80% of the listings, or taking 80% of the listings of the appointments he goes on, or she goes on, and then selling 65%. Well, what if I wanted to change my business model? What if I wanted to be what I call the highly selective listing agent? What if I only took 65% of the listings that I actually went out on, right? But I sold 80% because I was ultra focused on finding motivated sellers, ultra focused on listing only homes that were priced where I believed that they were going to sell. What would that look like? Well, all of a sudden, if the goal, the net goal stays the same, and you start changing or playing with some of those conversion ratios even, look at what happens. So let's say you said, I want to convert at a 65% ratio. I'm going to go out on some appointments. I'm only going to take 65% of the listing appointments that I go on. Well, you'd still need to go on about 254 listing appointments, but you'd only be taking 165. Well, how does that show up in your business? I look at that, and that's 40 less seller relationships that you have to have in your business on a yearly basis. Perhaps that's 40 less transactions, right, in terms of listings taken and escrows that you're trying to get into. But what does that do for your administrative work? What does that do for your marketing expenditures? So understand, changes or decisions that you make within the economic model will affect your business. Now you might think, well, that's a great idea, Chris. I'm going to be that 65-80. Be careful. Because understand, our business wants to be 50-50, 50% seller side and 50% buy side. And going through our course in MREA or reading the book, we understand that the real way to get buyers isn't to buy them. The real way to get buyers is to market seller listings appropriately and effectively. So, with that said, if we're taking 40 fewer listings, could that affect our buyers division? Potentially, yes. Let's look at the use of the buyer-broker agreement. Flip it the other way. Understand, and we talked about this a little earlier, but understand if you say, you know what, I'm not going to use the buyer-broker agreement, I've never done it before, I'm not going to start today, well fine. 80% of the buyers that you meet are probably going to say, yes, I'll work with you. But only 65% are going to actually buy a home. Well, when do they get in your car? When do you start driving them around? When do you start spending time? It's after they said yes. So understand, when using a buyer-broker agreement, only 165 buyers need to say yes. It means 165 buyers need to be real buyers that you're actually looking for a home for. Well, if you don't do that listing agreement or that buyer agreement, then you're going to connect with, or have to connect with 203 people in your car. Again, a difference of, right, almost 40 more buyers in your car. Well, how much time do you spend with each buyer? Another example I like to share in our course is what happens if you increased your commission as a listing agent? Maybe you start taking 6% listings and offer 2.5 and you're keeping 3.5. Well, here's what's interesting. You need to go on 36 less listing appointments, take 28 less listings. That's a lot less work. Just the listing appointments in general. If you average 4 hours per listing appointment, right, in preparation, you're driving there, you're presenting, you're coming back, you're following up. Even if it was 4 hours times, 36 less appointments, that's 3.6 weeks of work, 40-hour work weeks. Understand, a business decision, a tweak in your business plan could buy you back almost 4 weeks of vacation. Now you might say, well, I'm going to take those 3.5 weeks and put it towards prospecting or reinvest it in my business. Or you might say, hey, I'm going to take those 3.5 weeks and go launch another business or go to another country. and help launch or teach or coach down there, or expand down there. Whatever you choose to do with your time. But understand, the economic model, Gary Keller says in MREA that the economic model is the equation for success. And I don't know about you, but go back to math class, and there's an equal sign in an equation, right? So by doing X, you will get this. It will equal that. And that's why the economic model is, in fact, a model. It's a science. There's definitely some science and art to MREA. The economic model is the science of the MREA business model. The last thing I want to share, and I tell this story a lot when I'm teaching, but let's say you said, hey, I want to net 500,000. I don't want to net a million. I want to net 500,000. What does that look like? Let's make it a little closer to home. Maybe you're looking for a job. Maybe you're new in the business and this is your job. If you were flipping through the newspaper looking for a job and all of a sudden it says, apply here, salary 500,000, and you got the interview. Now you're at the interview and you're sitting across from the interviewee and they say, well, as you know, we're offering 500,000. And you say, great, that works. And they say, there are some things you need to do and commit to. And you say, great, what? Tell me what I need to do. Well, and they work up the economic model. At the top of that model is, I need you to go on 10 seller appointments and 10 buyer appointments a month. Every month, 10 listing appointments and 10 buyer appointments. You're going to sit in front of them, you're going to convert at the average rate, and at the end of the day, I'm going to write you a check. And you're going to net, right? Your salary is going to be 500,000. Would you sign up for that? Would you sign up for 20 appointments a month? You only have 20 working days. 20 appointments a month? We have to ask ourselves the question of, well, answer it first and say yes. Yes, we'd sign up for that because anybody would. Then as real estate agents, why don't we? How do we show up and not show up to 10 listing appointments a month and 10 buyer appointments a month? When if we believed in our economic model and followed that through, we know that those 10 listing appointments and 10 buyer appointments would convert on a monthly level and stack up on a yearly level to a net 500,000. It's a great question. It's one of those things that we're going to work through in our Model Your Way to a Million course. But I encourage you, break out that spreadsheet on page 131 of MREA and play with that. I have a spreadsheet on Excel as well that allows you to play with it, and it calculates it automatically. If you want it, just email me. I'll get it over to you. Obviously, we go through it in the course as well. But this is how real the economic model has to be to us. The economic model has to be a basis for then building our business plan and building our operations, even our business operations. What is our process with a seller? What is our process with a buyer? Will we take that listing? Will we not? Will we sign that buyer loyalty agreement? Will we get in the car? And once we know what our economic model looks like, then it's sticking to it and knowing that, again, 10 listing appointments, 10 buyer appointments needs or equals, right, equates to $500,000 net, then the only question we should care about is, how do I get those appointments? How do I generate enough leads to get the number of appointments that I need? That's our next video.